Hello and welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name is Dark Sage Walker, and before we get into the topic of today's video, let's quick generate the soundtrack that we're going to use, because we're going to be talking about the Sound of Silence. Not just necessarily the Disturbed version, but just the song in general, because I think the song in general has a lot of interesting things to say through its lyrics and its meaning. And I'd like to spend some time on that. So, we're going with classic music this time, by the way. Just rolled a 1. Now, let's get back to what I was going to be using here. So, because of the meaning of the song, I decided that the best thing to go with this time around was a very summon-heavy build. So we're using Pop-Up Primer as a means of getting the most out of the Null Flash agent. And actually, I just had an idea. Instead of using Phantom Order, why don't I use Ward of Chaos? Because I forget that can also... Well, see, okay, so I'm noticing part of the problem as to why I don't do that. And that's because even though it is a very good spell, and it can really boost the damage that I do, it also does not add on to... It also doesn't give me any signature charge. I think that's why I went with Phantom Order, or Phantom Company in this case, so... Going with my original idea, but the idea being that because the meaning behind the Sound of Silence has a lot to do with essentially people and company, that I would probably do best to go with a build very, very much like this, where it's about... Oh, I almost forgot about the soundtrack. There we go. So, the version of the Sound of Silence that most of us are familiar with is actually the version that was written by well, not written, but the version that was played by Disturbed in 2015. It was recorded for the album Immortalized, and later played on the Conan show. Now that live version of the show is actually one of the most viewed videos from that show, with, at least at the time of writing of the Wikipedia article that I was reading about, had 128 million views. I'm pretty sure it's got more than that now. Alright, back to the beginning! Woo! But the song in and of itself was not written by Disturbed at all. It was actually written by... It was actually written by Paul Simon of Simon and Garfunkel fame. What do we have here? Ooh, we can summon water dragons. I kind of like that idea too. Or I can summon a big fuck-off shark. Nah, I definitely like the water dragons a little bit better. Matter of fact, let's just go ahead and grab it. Is not necessarily going to be a particularly powerful addition to my crew, just thanks to the elemental resistances of the enemies, so maybe I shouldn't have bought it. But I think in the long run it'll do good. How dare you? That's what you get. Death by firing squad for you. And even the most eponymous line from that song doesn't quite mean what people think it means. Or rather, I should say it doesn't necessarily have the meaning that people think it has. But I will go over that in good time. Now, when that song was originally written it was written over the course of several months between 1963 and 1964. And, what here looks good? Obviously the sturdy wooden easel. There we go. Interesting. Okay, what the hell. Hold on to it for now, but there's a good chance I'll be finding something better later. Now, admittedly, that is boosting the damage of the water dragon, so perhaps I shouldn't be so dismissive. And I mean, the whole reason why I took the Fury robe, though, was because I wanted to hopefully work out a few more signatures of my Null Flash agents, but it might have been better to go with Rule or Awe, now that I think about it. Let me get back to what I was actually talking about now. Sorry, I got distracted. No, really, Dark Sage was my first clue. Alright, every room is just rot full of danger, apparently. Like, more so than I signed up for, I feel. But every room is also apparently worth a treasure chest, so I guess I shouldn't be too upset. Now, one of the things I'm having a little bit of trouble... Okay, stop firing crap at me. I'm not seeing much here that's catching my fancy. Not gonna lie. As I had said earlier, the original song was written by Paul Simon in between 1963 and 1964, just over the course of a few months. So obviously, kind of during the obviously during that kind of like January into or December into the new year, so in that area. And according to him, the whole thing about "Hello Darkness, My Old Friend," which we all use nowadays as sort of a meme to associate with despair and loneliness, was actually modeled after him in the way that he tends to write in the way that he wrote that song kind of in his bathroom in the dark because it helped him concentrate. I mean, definitely make of that what you will, but that was the original formation of that line. Now, obviously, today we use it for, as I had said, taking on kind of the idea of returning to the dark and speaking up about loneliness, and that's all well and good, but that's not necessarily what it was all about. I somehow managed to get all the way through the level without finding the boss room. Well, that's just weird. I also apparently never found the red portal. Well, there's the red portal. And when the song originally released, it actually didn't do very well. It was, by all rights, a commercial flop. So, because of that, Simon and Garfunkel actually temporarily broke up. With Garfunkel returning to Britain to continue his studies. Actually, I can look it up because I get the feeling I'm getting the information wrong. Here we go. Yes, the album that they released, which was called Wednesday Morning 3 a.m., released on October 19th, 1964, and it was a commercial failure, which led to the duo disbanding. So Paul Simon returned to England, and Art Garfunkel returned to his studies at Columbia University. What ended up happening is that the song ended up gathering some airplay on radio stations in Boston and throughout Florida in 1965, and the growing airplay led the song's producer, or I guess Simon and Garfunkel's producer, Tom Wilson, to remix the track, kind of overdubbing a few things and re-releasing it. That version of the single was re-released in 1965, and they were not informed of the remix until let me grab this just in case I find that good stuff. Actually, I think I kind of like what I have going on here. It's a neat little synergy, and stick with it even though I'm not getting a lot of signature charge from it. But that remix ended up hitting #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 for the week ending in January 1st, 1966. And that led the two of them to get back together and very hastily recorded their second album, which the record label titled The Sounds of Silence in an attempt to capitalize on the song's success. the remixed single version of the song was included on that follow-up album. So their original song did not chart well, but it was the remix that did, and eventually led them to getting back together. And I think it's a shame that it didn't do well, because it's a beautifully realized song. And the whole idea behind the song is that it's like a... Well, we can actually talk about that as we get into the lyrics. Because there's an awful lot to unpack with this song. Now, the lyrics that were originally written in 1963 and released in 1964, and that were eventually used for Disturbed's version, actually have the same lyrics, so we can use the lyrics for the original Simon and Garfunkel version for this version, because they're the same friggin' lyrics. So, obviously the best place to start is the beginning. And the song has a very interesting writing method where it's... Oops. I made a stupid... where each verse is written in essentially couplets of 7 lines each, and there we go. God, that guy seemed to have a lot of health. And each verse is kind of punctuated at the very end, talking about... Okay, we'll grab that. Legendary Library! We might come back for the Sleepy Thunderstone too, I'm not sure. Probably come back for it. I kind of like that idea a little bit better, just because it's more active guys on the field to disrupt my enemies, and I like that a lot. So, let's go ahead and get started. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with how I do things here on Wizard of Metal, I tend to read the lyrics, and this might be seen as a detriment to some, but I tend to read the lyrics as deadpan as possible, because I don't necessarily want to create the meaning of the song through emotional inflection. I want you all to be able to understand the meaning behind the song through the lyrics, or to be able to interpret your own meaning about it. Because if there's one thing that's true about art, it's that it's a very subjective thing. So I will be going over the original meaning of the songs, but keep in mind that that's more of a history lesson than anything else. Kind of like what I have going on right now. Which definitely means that I should have used a different robe, as I was trying to mitigate the difference between I have not seen you in a long-ass time. What are you doing here, buddy? Oh my goodness. That's the first time I've seen Cremire in a long time. Oh my goodness. Alright, I definitely want that now. I swear, that guy is rarer than a unicorn. Alright, but that's enough. Alright, I'm sorry. I'm essentially just wasting time. So the lyrics begin, "Hello darkness, my old friend, I've come to talk with you again." We all know that line, and I've already explained it, but just for argument's sake, for those of you who might not have been paying attention, that line is meant to punctuate the idea that the song was more or less written in Paul Simon's bathroom in the dark while he was just essentially sitting in there just writing, trying to essentially concentrate as he was putting the song together. But it does have another meaning behind it, which I'll get into probably after the end. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to go through all of the lyrics and then go into what the kind of official meaning behind the song is, and we'll just kind of go from there. So, starting the first verse over again. "Hello darkness, my old friend, I've come to talk with you again, because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence." So, like I said, this song has a very interested method. Talking is not my strong suit. But it has a very interesting method in which it was written, in which each verse is written as a series of 7 lines, and each verse has it set up where it's, setting up the essentially location / premise of the verse, then what the verse is more or less about, and then ending with talking about something that's happened, something about the sound of silence. But what the idea of silence is ambiguous, and there's a reason for that. But anyway, second verse. "In restless dreams I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone. 'Neath the halo of a street lamp, I turned my collar to the cold and damp, when my eyes were stabbed by a flash of a neon light that split the night and touched the sound of silence." So, in his dream, he's saying that he was basically all alone and then came across something that really caught his eye. And I'm gonna keep the meaning behind the lyrics as vague as possible, because we're gonna be getting into the expanded meaning at the end. Third verse. "And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more. People talking without speaking. People hearing without listening. People writing songs that voices never shared, and no one dared disturb the sound of silence." So now you've got our protagonist in the song having found his way to a gathering of people, all of whom are there, but not necessarily communicating in any perceptible way, because they dare not disturb what he's calling the sound of silence. Now, that could be any number of things, like the social status quo, as an example. But that idea is now there, so let's move on to verse number 4, shall we? Fools, said I, you do not know. Silence like a cancer grows. Hear my words that I might reach you. Hear my words that I might teach you. Take my arms that I might reach you. But my words like silent raindrops fell and echoed in the wells of silence. So now we're getting a more clearer picture of what this so-called silence is. It's almost like a malevolent entity in the way that it's being portrayed in the song. Considering that he's speaking about it being, tumorous like a cancer. So now we're starting to get a clearer vision of what exactly this silence is. There we go. So, final verse. And the people bowed and prayed to the neon god they made, and the sign flashed out its warning in the words that it was forming. Then the sign said, the words on the prophets are written on the subway walls, in tenement halls, and whispered in the sounds of silence. So that's the part that's probably the most difficult to understand. But the idea behind the song is much more sensible once you hear it kind of pointed out. And I'll be getting to that in just a second here, because I'm also trying to find my way through a level. Down here. The good doctor has graced us with her presence. There we go. Alright, so, according to an article that I found, apparently on medium.com, if you want to go find it for yourself, the song in and of itself, here we go. So here's an explanation given by Art Garfunkel himself during a live performance. This is a song about the inability of people to communicate with each other. And the topic is basically right there under your nose from the first very universally well-known line and verse. Hello darkness, my old friend, I've come to talk with you again. Now, that line in and of itself, as I've already explained, is more so talking about how the song was written, but it does have deeper meaning. That meaning being, the author has no one to talk to but the dark, to whom he tells, almost like a confession, about a dream that he had. The first theme of the vision is loneliness. There we go. Keep in mind, I'm still trying to clear the level as well, so as much as I'm enjoying talking about the song, I also have to be killing enemies and finding my way through a labyrinth. Hello, Whirling Wind Agent. Alright, well, first things first, let's grab Ball Lightning and bring that back to Dr. Saul. And we get the healthcare card. Not exactly the most useful thing, but alright, fair. Now, will we end up taking the Whirling Wind Agent if we can afford it? Yeah, probably. But that involves being able to afford it, and there's a good chance I won't be able to. We are very close to being able to afford it, but not quite there. And I don't think there's enough stuff for me to break to make up enough coins. So, oh well. I mean, yeah, we're up to 215 now, but that's still quite a deficit to make up, and I just don't think there's enough stuff to reach the requisited amount, so oh well. Alright, continuing on with that article now. Let's see. Like I said, as I was saying, the first theme of the vision is loneliness. The narrative finds himself walking alone on a narrow path when the cold night is suddenly lit up by the flash of a neon light. He is dazzled by it, and we are told that the glare is icy, naked, and unnatural. The neon conveys an idea of cold modernity, serving as a symbol for present-day industrial society, which has replaced the traditional warmth of the fireplace, bearer of communication and togetherness, with the impersonality of artificial light. Now, I'm a little bit at odds with that because what's happened in modern society is less about what's happened seems to be less about what's going on in modern society, and more so about just, well, to be fair, it is kind of about modern society. Sorry, I like the basic that I have right now. But I mean, there is something to be said for it, because if you look at the idea of the neon god, that almost feels like it's talking about modern day, where most of us spend so much of our time staring at screens. But anyway, so let's quick go over the third verse again. And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more, people talking without speaking, people hearing without listening, people writing songs that voices never shared and no one dared to disturb the sound of silence. So now we get to the crux of the case. The third verse is more or less the key of the song, as well as the core of Simon's vision. The light reveals a multitude of people likely meant to represent humanity as a whole. They are not acting normally in his eyes. Their actions are void of significance. They seem disempowered and alienated. Let's finish this part and then I'll do this next fight. The author realizes that too often people speak with each other just for the sake of it without really communicating anything, talking without speaking, and hearing without listening. They sound like oxymoronic statements, but they're instead carefully chosen expressions, hinting to the meaningless of most of present-day personal interactions. And I'm sure we've all felt that before, where it's like, we have things that we want to say, but either we feel like we're going to be rocking the boat, so to speak, or that the whole idea of talking about it is just pointless. And I wish we could get over that, because our ability to communicate and our psychological need to do so, to share information and to find meaning and company in the arms and the hearts of others, is something that our modern day technology has tried to combat, and yet it just seems like that problem of impersonality has only gotten worse. So, continuing on that part of the article real quick. It is undeniable that the society we live in pushes us to live frantic and stressful lives, leading to a pattern of self-absorption and detachment, which most of us only put aside to engage in shallow small talk with strangers we don't care about. Think about how rare it is to have a deep, heartfelt conversation with another person. How excitingly strange it is to really communicate with, or connect with someone, to be able to exchange experiences and opinions without falling into cliche, and more importantly, without feeling the compelling need to look at your phone, our neon gods. In these circumstances, the human sensibility and creativity risk to get lost, also for fear of revealing our true self to the world. In Simon's dream, people are writing songs that voices never share. In loneliness and incommunicability, art perishes, as we have no one to share it with, and we are terrified of non-acceptance and mortification if we did. So, that bit makes sense, Bear, about writing songs that voices never share? The line could also be a criticism of the contemporary music and cultural industry, which only promotes what is considered trendy by producers, and curbs the artist's creative talent, which is a recurring topic in Simon's work. So that really is kind of the crux of the song, is that idea of being consistently lonely and incapable of communicating. But, ooh, lightning bolt agents. I'll take it. And it's not going to do any better damage-wise than the dragons, but I do feel as though it fits the theme of the run a little bit better. Now, there is more to the article, and I will continue reading as I try to make my way to Anders' shop down here. Alright, so, ooh, I definitely want that. Alright, well that's our next goal, and our next goal after that, if I get the money, would be Sidewinder's badge. But, getting back to this, the incapability to share feelings, ideas, and art also means that we become desensitized to the evil around us, as we are no longer able to raise our voice against cruelty and injustice. No one dares to disturb the sound of silence, meaning nobody has the courage or the strength to rock the boat by questioning the status quo. Silence is thus characterized not as something positive and peaceful, but as an enemy that must be fought in order to get rid of our moral numbness and regain some sort of unity and togetherness. If we do nothing, if we stay silent, we are allowing and enabling all that is wrong in our society. We should stand up and denounce it instead. Now, that's a hell of a way to look at the song, but I mean, there is an awful lot of reasoning to think that. This song was written very close to the time of the Kennedy assassination, and I feel as though that the timing of the song was more of a coincidence than anything else. But, again, there is something there. Like I said, I feel as though that's more coincidence than anything else. My army grows ever strong. Alright, let's have a look at the cursed relics and see if there's anything here I really want. I mean, I could grab that, but I feel as though that might be a bit of a mistake. That, maybe. But let's continue reading the article. According to many, it's no coincidence that Simon wrote the lyrics around the time of John F. Kennedy's assassination, as I just pointed out. In The Sound of Silence, he paints the picture of a disheartened, dazed people mirroring the uncertainty of most Americans and their inability to react in the face of the violence and chaos breaking loose both inside their country and on the international stage. Having noticed this, the songwriter begins the next verse with a wake-up call. "Fools, said I, you do not know. Silence like a cancer grows. Hear my words that I might teach you. Take my arms that I might reach you." The author tries to warn the people in his dream, and his listeners, about the dangers of incommunicability. He compares silence to a tumor, spreading relentlessly through society, and which is eventually going to consume it. He then invites them to listen to his guidance, and offers them his arms, almost as if to physically rescue them from their illness. But all is in vain. His cry remains unheard, falling like silent raindrops and getting lost in the deafening silence. In this verse, all of Simon's juvenile frustration comes to light. He feels misunderstood and unappreciated. He realizes that most people are not easily shaken out of their paralysis, and the dissenting voices are often muffled by indifference. Now we get to the 5th verse. "And the people bowed and prayed to the neon god they made, and the sign flashed out its warning in the signs that it was in the words that it was forming. And the sign said, the words of the prophets are written on the subway walls and tenement halls and whispered in the sound of silence." The 5th and final verse, also the longest one, where am I going, by the way? Got it. Contains a fierce attack against modern consumerism, which is also something that we're starting to kind of pick up on today, which, makes this song feel pretty timeless all in all. Give me that. Thank you. The people idolize the neon sign they themselves have created, worshipping it as a god. The author means to show how modern men have converted to a new religion, whose holy cows are money, appearances, and shiny futility. Serving as prophet of the new god is obviously the advertising industry, which covers up with billboards every corner of the cities, while ads and commercials are whispered in the sounds of silence and are only audible noise, brainwashing people into buying things they don't really need. And again, I think it's very, very telling that things like that can describe our modern day scenarios. Why not? See, Paul Simon's criticism is also aimed at the alienating power of mass media, capable of detaching people from reality and making them prefer fake, passive interactions to the real, genuine ones. This also provides another interpretive angle to the lines "people talking without speaking" and "hearing without listening" mentioned earlier in the song. It is worth noting that in the early 60s, when The Sound of Silence was written, were the years in which television reached its mass diffusion in the US, exiting the status of luxury item and spreading its use among the middle and working class. And according to some facts about television gathered by Kobit Steinberg, by 1962, 90% of American households counted with at least one television. To sum up, the key message of The Sound of Silence is that we never have to stay quiet. And we should not be afraid of speaking out, both in our personal and social lives. The way towards a better society passes through effective communication, which is essential to draw attention to our needs and to demand justice and decency for all. To accomplish this, we should be careful with everything that can alienate us, leading us to think of ourselves only as individuals rather than as members of a worldwide community. In a nutshell, this song reminds us to avoid the neon gods our daily life is littered with, which can trick us into selfishness and indifference. And it's worth noting that by the time the song became a hit, the Vietnam War was raging, so it was adopted by many as an anti-war song. And especially nowadays, as our society grows more and more antagonistic and divided, and while many remain passive in the face of inequality and discrimination, I think we should, the article goes on to say that they think they should rediscover these songs, and by that they mean Blowing in the Wind, and by Dylan. I know who they're talking about, Bob Dylan, and John Lennon's Imagine. So, there you go. There's an awful lot to unpack about the sound of silence, and that's why I chose to present it the way that I did, by saving the deeper analysis of what the song was about until the very end like that, and reading it straight from that article, because they did a better job of summarizing in words what the song was about than I think I could have if I had to try to do it by myself. Now, the meaning of the song did not change when Disturbed covered it. What they did was bring the song to the forefront. And for what it's worth, Paul Simon actually did contact David Draiman of Disturbed and say he really liked it. To which David Draiman himself took as a huge honor from who he called one of the best songwriters that's ever been. Which, to be fair, that might be a little aggrandizing, but I mean, I'm also not going to necessarily disagree. Especially since nowadays songwriting is mostly done by committee and seems to have very little purpose other than to try to show us what's trendy and popular. I also forgot to pick up that Golden Saber of Envy, didn't I? I was so busy talking about the song that I just ran off ahead. Remember to go back for the book. Whoa, bear! I'll be bear. Now, Disturbed is the reason that I wanted to talk about this song on Wizard of Metal. Because it is a hard rock / heavy metal band doing a cover of a classic song. And for that same reason, I may very well be willing to talk about Hurt by 9 Inch Nails and Johnny Cash. Now, to be fair, it wasn't the two of them doing that song together. It was actually Johnny Cash covering the 9 Inch Nails song. But that song is still wonderfully written and executed. And I think Johnny Cash does that song a huge service. Because listening to the 9 Inch Nails version, I found myself going, it's alright, there's nothing wrong with it. It sounds like the sort of thing that would be written by 9 Inch Nails at the time. but it doesn't hit that just level of that Johnny Cash really gives it, because when Johnny Cash sings it, it sounds less like he's just making a generalization about hurting. It sounds almost like he's talking about, his own life. And that's really crazy to think about. There we go. Now, if I had been paying better attention, that would have been a great example of showing you that my summons were getting work done without me having to do anything other than dodge, but I also let myself get hit like a dumbass. Alright. And everyone's got a decent amount of time left, but I'm going to wait till I can re-summon them anyway. And I once again want to use that as a reminder to you guys that you don't have to only recommend songs that are just strictly metal or rock. Well, rock, yes, but it doesn't have to strictly be metal. By all means, contribute songs to Wizard of Metal that are just either rock covers of other songs, or songs that rock artists did of songs that come from other genres. So long as it's rock in some way or another, I'm willing to have a look at it. There we go. Owie. And there we go. Will not be falling to you, Neon God. My name is Sura. Yeah, that's what they all say. But one of the reasons why the other reason why I wanted to talk about this song is because this song really hit me on a strong level. Like, Sound of Silence is one of those songs that I knew about, but I didn't really internalize it until I listened to the version by Disturbed, and so many people have heard the song and said the same thing that I did, which is, God damn, that was powerful. And I will definitely put a video link to the song in the description below, and I hope you guys really enjoy it as much as I did, because wow, what a song. It's an absolutely incredible song that I think deserves to be enjoyed by more people. Not to say that a lot of people haven't. The live version on Conan O'Brien, like I said, at the time of writing of the Wikipedia article that I was reading, had amassed 128 million views, so it's not like it's unheard of by anyone. But that's enough for me. I've said my piece and gone over what I feel the meaning of the song is. By all means, if you want to contribute to the conversation, let me know on my social media or in the description of the video below. And yeah, that's all I've got for right now. So thank you very much for coming and spending some of your free time with me, and I will see you all next time. My name is Dark Sage Walker, and I will be seeing you